Live and online, it's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Did too when it first came out. If I can get my life together in the form of getting my camera together here.
Yeah.
I did too. I thought this thing was on Hulu, and then I was like, wait, it's Amazon Prime. But we will talk about that movie today. And then Joe, you're the one who put me on this one too, this story. That's going to be our second story for today. End of an era, man. This one kind of hit me a little harder than I thought, just like thinking back. But Best Buy is going to end DVD and Blu-ray sales in stores. And I mean, I don't go to Best Buy a whole lot, so I'll probably shoot myself in the foot. Like I'm part of the problem here. I think I've gone to Best Buy twice in the last year. I don't really go there much, even though there's one near me.
It is always the place I go to every Black Friday because I always thought they had the best Blu-ray deals. And like
I've been there on Black Friday.
Last year I picked up 8 movies. I even sent them to the chat. I picked up Everything Everywhere, The Batman, Doctor Strange, Bad Boys for Life. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, like I picked up a ton of movies that year.
You got some good ones.
Yeah, I did. I snagged some good ones back there, like a bunch of collections and trilogies too. For like a very, I have all the Die Hard movies I got them for all of them for $10, all on Blu-ray and digital codes.
That's an incredible deal right there. you know, four of the five are good too.
You and I are the few that say Die Hard with a Vengeance is the best one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I'll go to everybody's debating on, like I said, every Christmas, I always say, everybody debates whether or not Die Hard's a Christmas movie. No, the real debate is Die Hard with a Vengeance is better than Die Hard.
Yeah.
That's the real debate. That's a sweet deal, though. I've been there on Black Friday in the past before. My buddy used to always want to go and like look at the electronics and stuff. He's a computer guy, builds his computers and stuff. So we would always go there. That was one of the places we would hit. But yeah, we're going to talk about that. Probably get a little nostalgic here because like, I feel like anytime we bring up physical media on this show, it's just not good. Although we did talk about a couple of weeks ago, and now it's available for pre-order, that massive $1,500 Disney 100 Blu-ray set is now available, which, it's funny. Like I saw like all the reviews on the Walmart site are like it's like at like an average of like 1.5 stars because people are bitching about the price. Now it is expensive. Now, again, I'm not going to shell out the money for it, but at the same time though, like it really isn't that bad of a price because you got to think it's about $15 per movie on Blu-ray and you get the digital code.
That's literally like when a new release comes out, they're like $30 now from Disney. So it's like, and it's like even like those anime, like,
it's not a bad deal.
I mean, it's starting to end it soon, but when I went to Target, because Target's gonna be another one I'll bring up later, dude, they had like a few like animated Blu-rays, and I saw Dumbo and Aladdin on Blu-ray, and they were $20 each. So it's just like you're getting them. Frankly, you seem like you're getting them $5 less, and you're getting a whole collection.
It would be one thing if they included if part of those 100 movies, and I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, it would be one thing if they included a lot of the shitty direct-to-DVD sequels, like Atlantis, Milo's Return, Lion King, I don't know, 33 1/3, whatever they did. Like it'd be one thing if they included like Home on the Range 2, but they don't. Like it's all theatrical releases. Although my one point to piss and moan was the cowards didn't put Recess Schools out on there. I don't even think there's an official Blu-ray of that movie either for Recess Schools out, which is a damn shame. Even though it wasn't a great movie, I still like it. But yeah, that was I think the last time we talked physical media on the show, but we talked about Family Video obviously closing. and everything. So we're going to touch on that. Hopefully Dom will join us for that, though. But in the meantime, while you're here, Joe, how's your week progressing?
It's been great. If you were tuning in last week, I was busy wrapping up my class that I was taking, involving budgeting and everything for governments and whatnot for the public sector. And I'm happy to say, of the two things I had to turn in that week, which was a whole budget presentation and like why we're doing the decisions on like cutting certain programs out and like saving a bunch of jobs and all this other stuff, I got a 97 on it. And then my reflection essay that I turned in, I got a 98. So I was very happy about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I celebrated by watching Taylor Swift sing on the big screen for 3 hours. And yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. If you're into Taylor Swift and everything, and you didn't get a chance to go see the movie, it's definitely worth it. It was a ton of fun. Amazing set piece of a show that she puts on. Each era was amazing. Each outfit, the choreography, everything. I mean, it's an outstanding show.
How was the crowd?
The crowd at my theater. So I saw this movie twice. I swear to God, I'm not that big of a Swiftie either. After just saying that, I went a second time due to a birthday. But the first night I went, everybody was like singing along, but they stayed in their seats and just like put their hands in the air and everything, clapped along to certain songs and everything. It wasn't until we got to the last era of the concert, which is Midnight's, the most recent album, and these like teenage girls in the front row just start screaming at the screen and losing it. And I didn't mind it. It kind of just added to the experience, honestly. It was like, you know what? Sure. It really is replicating being at this concert. The second night when I went to AMC was the complete opposite. Nobody wanted to sing. And I almost wanted to turn around and be like, why the hell did all of you come out tonight then?
Yeah, I could tell. I'll be interested. We're going to see, me and Catherine are going to see Killers of the Flower Moon tomorrow.
Nice.
And I'm going to be interested to see if I see my manager buddy, just ask him like what the kind of crowds were like and stuff for that. Because I mean, I could imagine there was a lot of singing in a lot of the early shows. And I mean like the Friday night shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I can imagine there was a lot of singing. And I feel like for that, I mean, she's the biggest artist right now. I feel like that's kind of a different stratosphere. And you got to think, too, for as many people as that went to those shows, those tickets were so astronomically expensive that this is the closest experience a lot of people will get to this. You think fucking Springsteen's expensive.
Yeah.
Like, you know, to go to the Eras Tour concert. We got a contest right now on Y105 that right now that we're doing that just started this week on the radio station. It's 2 tickets to her show in Paris in May.
Holy shit! All right, But yeah, I mean, there's also the whole Ticketmaster thing, which everybody got fucked by that whole.
That was like the same with the Morgan Wallen fiasco. Yeah.
Yeah, like so. Yeah, to a lot of people, this is like the only chance they're really gonna see this, and to be experiencing it with an audience means that much more to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree on that. So I'm glad you checked it out, though. What'd you say the crowd? You said you talked about the crowd. How full was it? Was it pretty full?
Packed. Whole thing packed.
Packed.
Yeah.
Damn thing didn't make $100 million having shown to the seats. I'll say that much.
Yeah, Friday night is when I went the first night, and I went Saturday night. Both nights, fully packed theater.
This has got to be the worst week, too. One of the worst weeks I've ever seen for box office puns and headlines.
Oh, God.
Holy crap. I thought it was bad when the Bears faced the Chiefs. And the Bears got mollywopped by the Chiefs, and it was like Bears have to shake off Chiefs loss or whatever. You know what I mean? Like all these like terrible puns. The box office reports this week have been equally shameful. Man, oh man. But at any rate, though, we will talk Totally Killer. I'm looking forward to talking about this one. This is on Amazon Prime right now. Watched it last week. Me and Catherine checked it out. And the first thing I wanted to say with this one is that, like, it's hard to place credit at the feet of like a sole entity or a sole, producer. But I think it's really safe to say that in the 2010s, I think we're going to look back on that as a decade that the horror comedy really did see a resurgence. And it was largely thanks to Blumhouse and Jason Blum. Because you had Happy Death Day and its sequel, two very, very strong horror movies.
Yeah.
And you had Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. You had that one as well. That was A24, though. But you also had, which a lot of people even more forget, is Freaky with Vince Vaughn. You had that one too, which was like the Freaky Friday horror version. Obviously, Happy Death Day and its sequel played into sort of the Groundhog conventions and such.
Again, another one this year, but The Blackening was another.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Ready or Not is like one of my favorite ones.
Mm-hmm. That has comedic elements. I think of all of them though, Ready or Not is probably the most straight-laced horror movie.
Yeah.
I think it has comedic. I actually just rewatched some of it recently, and like I think that one really plays well as like a straight horror movie. But there are comedic elements in it for sure. And the commonality, though, with these like horror comedies is that I will admit I do think there's a ceiling on a lot of these movies, especially the Blumhouse brand of them, which sort of takes like it like they wear their influences on their sleeves. They're not trying to pass this off as original material. Obviously, I just mentioned Freaky was like Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
Happy Death Day was like a carbon copy of Groundhog Day. These movies aren't shy about like what they're influencing and what they're sort of capitalizing on, and with Totally Killer,
and neither is this one. Yeah, I was gonna say this one mentions
Totally Killer. It's Back to the Future and Scream. It's those two for sure are like some of the big influence because it involves time travel, which is a huge component of this movie too. It's got sort of this like masked slasher convention of Scream too, and it's also kind of got like this sitcom aesthetic to it, which makes sense because Nahnatchka Khan, I think is how you say her name. Nahnatchka Khan was also the creator and I think one of the showrunners and directors for Fresh Off the Boat, the sitcom. So the movie has this kind of like very lighthearted sitcom sort of aesthetic. It's very much a streaming aesthetic. I haven't found it yet. I'm convinced I will at one point. Somebody's going to write a great dissertation, and I can't wait to read it about like the aesthetic of Netflix and streaming movies. The very clean shot, sort of like multi-camera in a way that a lot of sitcoms are. This definitely has a lot of the appearance of a sitcom in a way. Not a bad thing, though. Not a bad, and it doesn't really derail this whole thing from being what it ultimately strives to do, is be a lighthearted slasher movie. But I also think, and I'm not going to dive into it yet, but I also think there's a little bit more underneath the surface of this movie that I thought was very wry, especially with how it deals with nostalgia of the 80s. And I thought it was smarter than I did going into it. Because at first I'm thinking like, Christ, are we just going to relish like acid wash jeans again and how music was better and look at a bunch of Blondie posters on the wall? But this thing does something really interesting with sort of how the 80s are framed that I can't wait to talk about. But for now, I'll give you the floor, though. Some general impressions of Totally Killer.
Look, man, if Blumhouse decided to cancel Happy Death Day 3, and we won't get to close out that trilogy of movies, Totally Killer is the perfect replacement in my heart to fill that void. I gotta admit, when this movie first started, I was not about it. Like, the first 10 minutes, I was kind of like, alright, this is being a little bit too corny for me in some ways, man. Like, I thought the way it was opening and just, the attitude that the teenage daughter played by I almost said what's her name from Ant-Man. She was just in it. Catherine she was just in Freaky, actually. That was what I meant to say. Oh my god.
The woman from Ant-Man you're thinking of?
Yeah, she plays Ant-Man's daughter.
Catherine
Noonan. Catherine Noonan. I almost said it's Catherine Noonan, but Kieran Shipka, I think is how you pronounce her last name. But she plays the daughter to Pam, who unfortunately had 3 of her friends murdered one night, and 23 years later, or something, what is it, like 30 years later actually, or 40, 35 years?
35,
thank you. 35 years later, like, unfortunately Pam ends up like her friends and everything, and just like the way it was all starting, I'm like, I don't know. And like the fact they literally were just like, yeah, I'm trying to build a time machine, and they just like threw it out there, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, okay, like, we're just throwing it out there. I got you, all right. It wasn't until, where she time travels to the 80s, and even then, so I was having the same concerns you were having. I'm like, okay, is this just gonna relish in 80s nostalgia and everything? As the movie went along, this movie got better and better. I was enjoying the comedy more. I was enjoying the dynamics between this modern day teenager in the 80s, where everybody is just a asshole to one another. And I think that's my favorite part about it, because like all these 80s TV shows, Stranger Things, all these 80s movies, all this stuff, they look back at the 80s like, oh man, like everybody got along with one another, everybody was so nice. And I just love seeing like these like high schoolers just be total douchebags to one another and have no concern for people's boundaries, people's like what they're going through, anything like that. It was hilarious. And just watching Jamie the entire time being like, whoa, no way, you can't say that to someone. And they're like, oh, shut the fuck up. Like, they're gonna do that. Like I said, as the movie went along, I just became more enjoyable to watch. I was having a lot more fun with it. I thought it got even more creative with the whole idea of her traveling back in time, similar to the Back to the Future premise. And I love the stuff they did when it was cutting back to like, you know, modern day and everything. It just became something where it was like, at first it started out, I was like, okay, like maybe this will be all right. But by the end, I was like, no, this was actually a very enjoyable movie to watch, especially this time of year around Halloween.
A lot of good thoughts right there. I'll continue by saying too, like some of the details you were bringing up too. There's when she goes back in time to the 1980s to try to like identify the killer. She interacts with a lot of people. Like one of the most interesting relationships is that she strikes up with the teenage version of her mother,
yes,
played by Olivia Holt, who looks a ton like the actress who plays her adult mother, Julie Bowen.
Yeah.
The woman who plays her mother as a teenager is Olivia Holt. The two look really, really similar.
That was very good casting.
Very good casting. But more reasons though, since we obviously get to know like the younger version of her mother, of Jamie's mother, versus the older version. Olivia Holt is really good here too. Kiernan Shipka, I think, does the best work of all, but don't sleep on how good Olivia Holt is here, because she has to be both like cruel and also like charming in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like she definitely does like dual work here, being both like you can't stand her, but as the movie goes on, it's like she does bear some likable qualities too. Great cameo too. We didn't get to talk about his directorial debut shortcomings on the show, unfortunately, which might make my top 10 of the year, spoiler alert. But Randall Park plays the useless sheriff in town, the utterly useless, offensively useless sheriff in the movie too, and he does some pretty good work as well. I think the craftiest thing this movie does, though, and you could take it from here too, if you got more to say, but I think the craftiest thing this movie does here is how the three writers cut back to the present time,
yes,
where Jamie's friend Amelia is like fussing over the time machine, and slowly but surely, the
time
longer that the Jamie is in the 80s, like band posters start changing with like different names of the band, like the universe starts altering itself in subtle but noticeable ways.
Yeah.
And it becomes more and more apparent the longer she is gone. And I like that too. And it's hard to make I'm going to pause here. It's hard to make my next point without spoiling stuff. Let me think about a way I can reword this while I give it to the floor to you.
No, I also enjoyed that because while all these horror comedies, you know, we say like, you know, they're very much based off of something and they're not hiding it. Freaky's based off Freaky Friday. Happy Death Day is based off Groundhog Day. They at least find something unique to do with that premise that we don't often see from these, like, you know, these type of movies. Happy Death Day was every single time she died, she is actually slowly dying. Like parts of her body are starting to fail and everything, so she can't keep dying like this and everything. Otherwise, she'll actually end up dead for real the next time she wakes up. And in Freaky, I forgot what it was, but there was something to Vince Vaughn's character and Catherine Noon's character where it's like, if they don't actually do this, like something else will happen. I think it's what they actually did with Catherine Noon's character that I thought was, okay, that's actually like a cool play on the like the whole idea of this whole Freaky Friday body swap. Here, actually having the Mandela effect actually play into the plot was actually really cool. It's something that not many time travel like movies or shows really do. And whenever they do it, I actually like to give them props for doing that, because it's like, it makes it a little bit more creative, because it's just like, yeah, because this is how I imagine time travel would work. Like, if you did go back in time, there's no way you would alter nothing and come back to the present and everything will be fine. Like, I love Back to the Future, but Marty should have came back and, like, I don't know, Van Halen should have been, like, the AC/DC band or something, like, now or whatever.
Yeah. And that's the thing with time travel movies, is everything they all come back and everything is, like, back to normal in a way. And again, without spoiling this, I like how a lot of things change.
Yeah, same.
Because it was realistic. It was real, like time travel's not realistic really at this juncture, but
It helped ground the idea of it.
If it were, it's like it's the one thing there was I can't remember where I heard this line, but it was like with time travel, step on an ant and like prevent a war and like stop a world war, or something like that. You know, it's just like certain little things. Like imagine like even like today, if you like, I'm thinking about me. If I didn't run an errand today that I thought I was going to run today, it would have altered my entire day tomorrow.
It was,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was my favorite part of the Flash movie where they made the little jokes of just like, oh yeah, Top Gun played by Michael J. Fox and everything.
Yeah, and this thing, and again, I have to give the actors a lot of credit here. Shipka, Holt, I have to give a lot of credit to the actors here because this thing kind of changes tones sometimes on a dime,
it does,
too.
Yeah.
Like, it switches tones so frequently, and like, there's actual growth here from Kiernan Shipka's Jamie character that's demonstrated throughout the whole movie. Like, she goes from being like a typically angsty teenager who's like not a fan of her cool parents to then like this grieving daughter to this proactive and protective mother figure to like a group of these 80s high schoolers like her mother, you know what I mean?
There's a lot about their well-being at all throughout this movie.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I thought that was crafty. I thought that was, there's a lot of things about this, and I keep using that word again too. There's a lot of crafty elements about this movie, that endear it, and I think it's a little bit better than Freaky. I would say I think it's a little bit better overall than Freaky, and I liked Freaky. And I think it's about on the same level as the Happy Death Day movies.
I would put it right there as well, the same rating or a level of like, comparison that you're doing there. And again, her character Jamie, like that growth she goes through is probably why I ended up enjoying the movie more. Because like, yeah, when this movie started, I just wasn't caring about her character, and even during the grieving part, like, it was just like, damn, I thought this was a horror comedy. Like, when the hell's the comedy gonna start kicking in? But yeah, no, when she travels back in time, and yeah, she's like trying to be this mother figure to like a group of dysfunctional high schoolers from the 80s, who throw a house party, go up to a cabin, underage drinking, underage sex, do all this stuff. It's just a ton of fun to watch and see how it all plays out. Yeah, it's such a good time. That, like, again, I think if you're not into horror movies, the comedy here and the creativeness that they do with time travel will definitely get you by on the stuff that, like, you're probably not into horror, and this will totally help you, like, just sit down and watch the movie and you'll be like, okay, I'm still having fun with this in some way.
I agree there too. And I was talking a little bit earlier, I teased it. I said, like, this movie does something a little bit different with nostalgia than I think we've come to expect. And that thing really is the fact that this isn't really set in the 80s for the sake of being set in the 80s so that we can like relive all the things that we miss or like retroactively wanted to experience or what have you. Even looking beyond like one of the things this movie does a lot, and they do it conservatively enough where it doesn't become annoying like it did in like another streaming movie on Netflix earlier this year called You People. It doesn't go this level of being obnoxious, but one of the recurring jokes of this thing is Jamie's like deadpan reactions to like the rampant political incorrectness of the time, which is at some points funny. I think the funniest thing is how she walks into the school and passes off as a transfer student and nobody like doesn't ask for any form of ID or anything. Like that I think was funny. The fact that how quickly she could just enter the school as a total stranger, that I thought was funny. But I think that there's like an undercurrent here though that's kind of interesting, and it's the fact that, like, think about this. It's not. Some people might argue it's like it's just a plot convenience. I don't think so, and especially because I live in an area, I live in a town right now that's like been population like 65,000 for like the last 20 years or something, and there's like 5 or 6 legacy families in this region of eastern Iowa, and everybody sort of knows everybody. It's referred to as like the biggest small town, which is kind of like where Jamie lives. Like, it's not necessarily a small town, but it's sort of like its own little nested enclave where like generations grow up and live. And like Jamie can go back in time and interact with like younger versions of her parents, her teachers, her administrators, her neighbors, because nobody bothered to leave.
Or even in the case of the sheriff, the parents of people who are like adults in like her like timeline, basically.
Yeah, like they stayed put in a town that seeps with paranoia about murders that occurred 35 years ago.
Mm.
That's for a movie predicated around an unrealistic concept. That is a very realistic touch right there.
It is, yeah.
That I thought was everybody knows everybody's business, and old habits die hard with the older generation. You even see that in the way like the younger versions of these people that we briefly meet in the beginning, like how that kind of carries on. And like it also makes clear to the point, somebody told me this years ago when I was like first starting college, where it's like you may graduate high school, but you'll realize that like the high school mindset doesn't really leave a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I thought about that again while watching this thing.
Especially when you have the characters like Jamie's dad and the host of the podcast that follows the killer and everything, like those interactions. The high school staff, which don't get as much screen time as the other two I just mentioned, but even like their whole like way they bounce off one another, like there's that whole aspect too. And then like seeing the younger versions and how like, oh yeah, still like 35 years later, you're still treating each other as if you're back at Vernon High.
100%. So I thought that the way this movie didn't just relish the nostalgia of the area and kind of showed just like, yeah, this town, like the murders that occurred, like the Sweet 16 murders that occurred 35 years prior in the 80s, like it really, I don't want to say, changed the trajectory of the town in a way, but like it rendered everybody then stuck.
Yeah.
Because like every Halloween, everybody's paranoid, everybody's on edge, give Jamie's mother a couple more years and she's probably Laurie Strode.
I was going to say, this is what Haddonfield should have been after the first Halloween.
Yeah, like imagine if like Michael Myers was a one-time deal. Like Laurie Strode would, need a little Zoloft, but she'd be okay. Just a little bit paranoid, and her daughter would like think she's a raging bitch. It wouldn't be like there's a spectrum here. There's a spectrum here of like Jamie's mother, Julie, I think her name was Jamie's mother, and then like Laurie Strode. There's like a spectrum of like matriarchs.
Well, even how the movie starts, how she has like traps around like the house, not even traps, but just weapons lying around. I was just like, dude, like this woman is literally how Laurie Strode was, and the fact that Jamie took like self-defense courses and knew how like to fight back, carries all this stuff. I'm like, that's literally what Laurie Strode did to her daughter, causing that like whole rift. And I'm like, it's actually kind of cool how they just kind of doing that here too.
She's Laurie Strode with crown molding and a mortgage.
She's Laurie Strode if Laurie was a high school cheerleader.
It's funny. And this movie's a fun one to discuss. That's why I wanted to kind of like peg it while it's the month of October, too.
No, absolutely.
Because I didn't really know, didn't have a ton of expectations, was hoping it would be amusing. But there's a little bit beneath the surface here that I think is worthy of talking about ultimately. And we got a few more minutes for the intermission. We'll probably use the back half of the intermission to give our final thoughts here, unless Dom mysteriously joins us, and then we can pivot there. But the other thing is that like we didn't really talk too many weak points though. I do have one. What one of the film's like few weak points to me was probably some of the kills. Truthfully,
yeah,
it's not the fact. And we just watched last night, me and Catherine, we just watched this really, really interesting movie. Highly recommend it. Maybe I'll tell you about it after the show. It's called Starry Eyes.
Okay.
Really interesting movie. And we both recommend it. And there were some fascinating kills in that movie. Made you wait a long time for them, deservedly, but they were fascinating kills, and it's a well done movie, really interesting, and totally killer though. I feel like stylistically, for all the great things that she does, I feel like she had a hard time trying to capture these kills because I thought a lot of them were like messy and not in a great way in terms of how they were shot.
It's almost like Scream Queens in some ways. It reminded me a lot of that TV show. Whenever like someone got killed on that show, it was just kind of the basic stabbings and everything. Well, even Happy Death Day, like the kills weren't that brutal, but like it was how creative they did the transitions of her getting killed and waking back up in the bed.
It was the redundancy.
Yeah, the redundancy. It made it more funny and everything. It was only that character experiencing it, but it's like when the other people are getting killed by the killer and everything. Yeah, it is a bit bland. That is actually one aspect I didn't even realize, but like after you brought that up and thinking back on it, it's like, Yeah, getting stabbed 16 times just wasn't really all that really special. And whenever it happens to any of the, the girls when she's like in, the past and everything, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is not that good. For me, I mean, the biggest thing for me was just the pacing. I just felt like that first act just was kind of dragging and was taking forever getting to the whole premise of what the movie was. And normally, I don't try to let pacing bother me. Like I try to let a director, writer really tell their story. But here, I just felt like, man, it is taking forever for things to get rolling here. And it's just kind of gloomy. It's even got like the ugly filter when she's in the present after her mom dies and everything. And it's just like, all right, I'm like hoping this movie actually kind of picks it up a notch because I'm just kind of getting like just a little bit like just annoyed about like how slow things are moving right now.
I hear that. I was just even thinking too, like, when I think about this movie, and again, like you can even, as evident in what I've been talking about too. I'm talking about the way this kind of treats nostalgia, talking about the performances, talking about the creative ways that this cuts back from the past or the future and the past or the present, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things I least remember about it's the kills.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, I think there's a lot of creative ingenuity here, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, some would argue that like a slasher movie with forgettable kills is a bad slasher movie. Not when there's a lot going on, though. That it doesn't so much rescue it. I don't think the kills are bad. I just don't think they're memorable.
I can forgive it too when everything else is being creative about the film. How the time, especially when time travel is being creative and being refreshing for once. It's like I can let a few kills throughout this movie like slide if they're not that creative or memorable.
Yeah, and it helps too. Like I said, I'm glad we watched it too. It was actually Catherine's pick for the Halloween marathon. We're doing the movie Starry Eyes. And that was a fascinating movie. I got a couple minutes here before the intermission. I'll tell you to give you the basic gist of it. I haven't written a review yet, but it's essentially about this aspiring actress who is trying to get this role with this big company. I think it's called Astraeus Pictures. And she's trying to get this role. She works at like this Hooters-esque restaurant. It's called like Tater Girls or something. Okay. It's really strange. It starts off on a very kind of peculiar note, but at any rate, though, like she gets this call back from this studio to be the lead in this film, and they have her do this audition. And essentially, though, like when she thinks she doesn't get it because the people watching her do the audition are very standoffish, she like has a complete fucking meltdown in the bathroom and like rips her hair out of her scalp.
Oh, Jesus.
And like she has like this fit. And the one lady who saw the audition sees her and she's like, do that again for us. And she slowly gets roped then. You kind of know where this is going in a very sick way, like think the movie The Assistant.
Yeah.
You see where this is going, where she meets the studio executive who like traps her in this room and says like very few people have made it to this room. And in so many words, I won't give away. You could probably infer kind of what happens to a degree. But like she then slowly, the last like 40 minutes of this movie is nasty because she's infected and she's rotting.
Oh,
like
God.
Literally, her fingernails are falling off. Her skin's like zombie white. She's infected and she's vomiting maggots and like all this shit. And it's like I still haven't fully processed all the themes that this thing covers, but I bring it up though in relation to Totally Killer was because like the movie doesn't really have any kills until like the final 20-25 minutes.
Yeah.
But every single one, there's like five or six. Every single one is unique, weapon wise, camera angle wise, technique wise. Everything's unique. One of the more surprising like streaming movies, and I'd never heard of it either. It's called Starry Eyes, and it's sick. It's a sick little movie, but it's a good movie.
Okay. Oh yeah. I mean, you kind of got me sold on at least how like
we could not make Dom watch it. We could make Dom watch the first hour and then that's about it.
Just tell him like, everything works out in the end.
Because at first it reminded me of like a horror like thriller version of The Assistant.
Okay.
And then it took like an Evil Dead turn, and I'm like, holy shit.
That's what it sounds like when you told me when she got infected. I'm like, wait, infected? And you told me what's happening. I'm like,
oh, it's total body horror.
Okay.
Total body horror by the end. We will come back and wrap up our discussion on Totally Killer. Almost forgot what we were talking about. Wrap up our discussion on Totally Killer and then segue to our topic on Best Buy ending the sale of physical media. Don't go anywhere. Sleepless with Steve. Back in just a couple of minutes. Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve. Back after a Zoom-sponsored intermission. Look who wandered into the right Zoom chat over
Better
here.
than ever.
Dominic
Truly
Guanzon. After our Zoom-sponsored intermission, he is back half of the show. Glad we didn't wrap our discussion on Totally Killer yet. We're just about to segue into our closing thoughts on the film, me and Joe. But I'm going to give Dom the floor here, since obviously Johnny Come Lately over here hasn't said a single word about Totally Killer. Want to give you sort of a couple of minutes here to talk about it, and then I'm not going to lead you. I'm not going to tell you what we discussed about it. I kind of just want to hear off the cuff what you have to say about it.
So this felt like a really, really fun, well-produced sci-fi SYFY movie. And that is a half compliment. There were certain I was like a 75% compliment, which is my intention. It was a fun movie once you got into it. And I found myself just kind of rooting for whatever was happening with the plot, just to see it through. And because some of the performances here are fun and almost endearing in a way. And it goes by very quickly. I don't even know the actual runtime of the movie, but it goes by at a pretty decent pace, a good pace. And there are a lot of plot points here that are either very cheap or very contrived, particularly at the end or first ending, where it's like, okay, you just kind of exposed a bunch of exposized a lot of stuff there seemingly at the very end, and gave some reasoning here so that certain characters could feel better about themselves or whatever. But honestly, I think the worst thing about this movie is its name. Like, Totally Killer, I get it, feels a little kind of generic, almost fitting though. But really, I don't even have the cast list pulled up at all, so I don't even know any of the actors' names to be frank. But it's breezy, and I found myself enjoying it. And the main message of the movie that I got here, which I don't think is the primary message at all, whatever message this movie may have, but the message I got is, holy shit, the 80s was pure barbarism. It was hell on earth if you were young in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it was like, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Still, like, this town seems a lot more racially harmonious than I think what would actually be in the 80s. But that's beside the point. No, it's a fun, breezy kind of movie. And if you're not tired of the 80s nostalgia yet, which I'm about half and half. I've had some ups and downs. If you can do it well, then okay. But other than that, I can just, that's honestly surmised. I didn't really have too much to say here. So I guess can I start with my final thoughts then? Or I'll just give the rating? Or,
yeah, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I honestly, for what it was, I'll give it 2.5 out of 4 stars. I'll be a little more lenient in that sense. And where it ended up, I am glad. It's like, you know what? They actually went with it here in terms of like how timelines changed. And it's like, okay, you know what? That's a funny little joke there at the end. That's a fun twist. And yeah, breezy, fun. Don't think about it too hard, none too deep. Poking fun of little tropes, and I'm very glad that I was born when I was born. So yeah, there you go. 2.5 out of 4 stars for Totally Killer.
I started, and then I will end with you. You'll send us home, Joe, on Totally Killer. I started the review by saying that, like, the horror comedy genre has really been revived in large part thanks to Blumhouse in the 2010s with Happy Death Day, Happy Death Day to You.
I was thinking of that movie, yeah.
Yeah, there's very much in common with this one. Then you had Freaky with Vince Vaughn. You have The Blackening, which Joe mentioned. Joe reminded me of, though. You had The Blackening earlier this year. You had Bodies, had a little bit of a comedic touch to it as well. So you've had a lot of horror comedies. A lot of them come at the hands of Blumhouse. And I said that, like, most of them wear their influences on their sleeve, and most of them have a ceiling. Most of them have sort of a creative ceiling.
Yeah,
whereas Happy Death was very beholden to Groundhog Day. Freaky was beholden to Freaky Friday. this one is beholden to Back to the Future. And the thing, though, that I liked about this movie quite a bit, probably a little bit more than you, Dom, is that I said before, I thought the weaker element of this movie was probably the kills. I thought some of the best part about this movie were the creative decisions, how they cut back between the future and the past, how things realistically changed in the present and stayed changed based on what happened in the past. And also, too, I think the other thing that's nice about this movie is that it doesn't just exist to relish 80s nostalgia. Besides Jamie's sort of reactions to like the rampant political incorrectness of the time, I think there's some very subtle commentary about like what actually came of this like small community enclave that never left. Some may say it's like a plot point or a plot contrivance that Jamie goes back in time in the same town and she interacts with like younger versions of her parents, her teachers, her school administrators, her neighbors, things like that. I think that's honestly very realistic. This town was gripped in a panic over these murders 35 years ago. It's let paranoia seep in the town so deeply that everybody just kind of stayed put. Everybody knows everybody's business. They haven't really left that high school sort of mentality behind. And I thought that a lot of that was kind of counterintuitive to some of the more like 80s themed horror movies that we see a lot, or like the 80s movies that we see a lot, where everything was great. The music was so much better in the Reagan era, and acid wash jeans were the thing. I thought this movie did a little bit better at kind of not just dousing this thing in nostalgia and being what ultimately I thought was a pretty creative horror comedy. Not flawless, not perfect, but damn entertaining for what it was. I give it 3 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, for me, where I want to go with this one. I mean, like I said, this filled in the hole in my heart when I eventually found out that we are not going to get Happy Death Day 3, and I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. That's like one of my favorite movies of all time. How could you do this to me? Not my favorite movies of all time. It's just a favorite horror comedy of mine. This filled that gap in, and I was very happy about it. I very much enjoyed a lot of what this movie did creatively, as Steve was saying. Him and I very much agreed on that in the review. Especially with the cutting back to present day, like we said. I enjoyed the performances here. For me, I mean, like I said, the only weak parts of this is that, and Dom, even though you said you felt like the pacing was good, for me, I felt like the first act's pacing just took forever for things to get going. And like,
okay, yeah, I agree. But after that, did it get better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. After that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in this movie now. This is a great movie. For me, it was like watching the movie play out. I was just like, okay, it's getting better as it's going along, and especially as it was doing the Mandela effect thing. I was like, okay, I'm really enjoying this now. So for me, it is 3 out of 4 stars as well. I think it's just a fun movie to throw on around Halloween time. It could be another classic like Halloween movie you put on that people do with Christmas movies. You could do it with your Halloween Town, your Hocus Pocuses, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it again sometime.
I meant to say this earlier too, Joe. Do you mean butterfly effect when you say Mandela effect? Do you mean butterfly effect or Mandela?
They just say, they said Mandela effect in the movie, right? Or am I having a Mandela effect right now?
No, I think there is that conversation.
Okay.
That it's Mandela effect. I was thinking butterfly effect would be more applicable. Because Mandela effect is like, it's not how you remembered it, but again, you change so much by going back.
Yeah.
That like it would make sense for things to change.
I guess butterfly effect is also like the thing, because that is what's happening with like, the whole idea of like, oh, she's going down the stream and anything she changes is like, happening. But like when we're cutting back to the present timeline of the movie and the Mandela effect stuff is happening, where people are like, wait a minute, no, was it the lead singer of Killer 6, like, but now he's Waterbed Blues or whatever the hell that joke was. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how I was looking at it.
Sure. Any other things you wanted to add about that, Dom, after hearing our kind of where the general direction of our conversation went on it?
Yeah, I glossed it over, but Joe, you're absolutely right that the first quarter to third of the movie was before the time travel.
Exactly, yeah.
Also, like how it feels grounded at first. This is a small, right?
You're about to say exactly what I said.
Yeah, it's like small, like, or sorry, very, very grounded. It's like, yeah, dude, it's dark. It's like 3 girls got murdered and it's very creepy. And then like all of a sudden, yeah, so I made a time machine. What the hell? Like that completely. Like I knew that was the plot, but just the way that they paced that.
I would
like,
almost rather have that though versus like this girl's like inexplicably like I finally tracked down the uranium in the bowels of the Congo. Even if you're gonna do it, it's almost like refreshingly radical to be like, yeah, I'm almost done with my time machine. Like,
just wave it over, gloss it over. And I think the original Back to the Future integrates it way better. But even that is like, oh yeah, it feels a lot more natural the first time you watch Back to the Future, because that is like, it's already established that he's a mad scientist. But it's like, no, it's just like a single mom who happens to be an engineer, and like that they don't even expand on that. It's like, oh, okay, like this is like the greatest invention in the history of humankind. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, time travel, yeah.
No, it's a very good review. I'm glad you could be part of it. Did you want to say one more thing, Joe?
Sorry. I was just gonna say, like, I just found it funny, like, like when they did just throw out like, oh yeah, I'm almost done with my time machine, because like I didn't watch any trailers for this movie. Like, you just sent it in. I was like, you know what? I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out, because you said it was a horror comedy and everything. I'm like, okay, cool. And I've been seeing promos of it, like posters and everything, and I saw who directed it, because I love Always Be My Maybe on Netflix. So I was like, yeah, I'll watch it for sure. So like, when it started, it was like, oh shit, like this is pretty like serious. I thought this was a horror comedy. And then when she threw out the line like, I'm almost done with my time machine, I was just like, holy crap, I've activated the raise my hand feature. There we go.
Yeah, I was like, damn, man. I'm like, you making your point though. I'm like, let the man talk over here. All right, Dom, you're back. So we're going to be talking about this topic right here. We don't have to go too long on this, but I think it's worth noting. I mentioned to Joe earlier, I said, I think the last time we brought up physical media on the show was that like $1,500 Walmart Blu-ray set of 100 Disney movies. But I said most of the time we bring up physical media on this show, it's not very uplifting. It's not very positive news, unfortunately. And this really isn't, depending on how you slice it. But Best Buy, apparently, this was just noted a few days ago, that Best Buy is going to be ending sales of DVDs and Blu-rays in 2024, early 2024. This is also online too. So Best Buy is just not going to sell DVDs and Blu-rays anymore. And when I first saw it, I assumed it was just going to be in the store, but no, they're not selling them. They're completely taking them out of their inventory. But it made Best Buy initially made the decision to end the DVD sales about 9 months ago, according to a source in the industry. And the statement by a Best Buy spokesperson to Variety, that's where I'm getting the story from, said that to state the obvious, the way we watch movies and TV shows is much different today than it was decades ago. Making this change gives us more space and opportunity to bring customers new and innovative tech for them to explore, discover, and enjoy. That was probably my second thought when I heard this too, is that like, yeah, it opens up the showroom. It opens up the showroom floors for like washing machines and like smartphones and a bunch of other technology that Best Buy sells. And
I wish I could do my washer and dryer as streaming as easy as that. We replace that shit after the bullshit I had to do with the last month of washer and dryer trouble. Oh my God. Complete derail.
Left him scarred over here.
It did.
But there's 1,100 Best Buy stores, a little over 1,100 Best Buy stores. 969 of those are in the United States, one of which is like 15 minutes from me, give or take. But I was telling Joe, too, at the start of the show, I think I've been in a Best Buy like twice in the last year. There used to be an old joke. I don't know if people make it anymore, but I used to see it on Reddit many years ago, was that like people would call Best Buy Amazon showroom. That was the place where you would go to like interact with like technology and stuff and like, try out phones and stuff and then get it cheaper on Amazon. So I don't know if that mindset still exists, but I could absolutely see it. It's sad in a way. It's understandable, but it's no less sad because some of my memories of like finding movies and loving movies and building the DVD collection that I have today, a lot of those movies were purchased at Best Buy. A lot of them were purchased at Best Buy. That's where when I used to get money for my birthday or Christmas, it was the first place I want my mother to take me, was Best Buy. So I could stock up on movies and seasons of shows and stuff like that. And hell, I remember on Sundays, you get the Sunday paper, the big, thick Sunday paper that's got all the advertisements and everything. I remember back when DVDs used to come out on Tuesdays, I remember like looking on Sunday through the Best Buy catalog to see what movies were coming out Tuesday. And And I still remember like a few movies, like going out and buying like the Blu-ray Best Buy exclusive Blu-ray of 99 Homes with Michael Shannon, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I bought all those seasons when they came out. So like it's funny to think about, but I like look at my DVDs and stuff, and I'm just like, a lot of these I bought at Best Buy, or a lot of these like I got gifted from Best Buy. And it was just a couple of months ago that we talked about, or no, it was more than that. It was a couple of years ago, more so, when we talked about Family Video closing. And this, I'm there, and a part of me is surprised it lasted this long. That Best Buy didn't pull the plug on the DVD and Blu-rays earlier. The one other point to hit on this too is that they're still apparently going to be selling video games, though. They're still going to be selling.
That makes sense.
Games.
That makes sense.
Higher margin on that. People still come in to get physical copies of games too. Even though like now I haven't gamed in many years, but like I'll be at like Walmart or something. I'll pass the gaming section. I'm like, this shit is on like credit cards now. Like, like I swear to God, I really start to feel old when I go by the video game section. I'm like, they got like these block characters or these blobs, and now they're on credit cards. Like, that's when I really start to feel old, is when I go by the video game section. And I haven't been to the video game section of Best Buy in many, many moons. But I still think I still do think it's pretty sad. Also, fun fact, though, from this Variety article, too. I knew this when it happened. I remembered when this happened. But I still think it's funny, this sentence. Also still in the physical disc game is Redbox, now owned by Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. I think it's hilarious that Chicken Soup for the Soul is like its own proprietary company now, number one, and number two, it owns Redbox.
Is that really the same company that published those books?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, man, they're like an
fits.
LLC.
It fits in a weird way. It doesn't, but it does.
They're like an LLC now, Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. I don't know. That was completely irrelevant to anything we talked about, but I felt like bringing it up. We'll go
corporate soup for the bank. Yeah.
We'll go, Joe. Definitely want to talk to you about this, because you were talking earlier about your Black Friday experiences and stuff. I know you got probably some Best Buy anecdotes you want to share.
No, yeah, it's sad to see. I mean, like, it makes sense to open up the showroom floor to have more stuff to display, because Best Buy does have, washing machines, sometimes refrigerators, depending on which Best Buy you go to, TVs, all that stuff, computers. They're going to be probably having desktops built now there that you can buy like as a whole package. So I get it. It just sucks because, similar to you, Steve, Black Friday for me every year since I was a kid, I had young aunts and uncles growing up and everything. They would always go and like wait in line and everything, and I would go with them from time to time. But anytime I would open up the those newspapers that would come out the week of Thanksgiving, I would circle all the movies, all the games I want to get on Black Friday. Most of the time it was movies, because they were just way cheaper, and any allowance I got. And me being a November 20th birthday, I got birthday money leading into Black Friday. So I always like waited at the end of the year to pick up any movies I wanted to get, any video games, whatever it was. So like I used to build out I had a ton of DVDs growing up. Like if you guys ever come to my house, I will show you all the DVDs I bought as a kid. I bought for some reason, I didn't even know what the movie was. I just knew my mom knew and my dad knew, and people quoted it all the time. I bought Casablanca when I was like 9 years old. Never watched it until I got to high school, but like I just bought it to own it because it was $5 up for Black Friday.
That is the equivalent of putting a Scarface poster on your wall when you're in college, even though you've never seen it. That's so funny.
You walk into some dude's room, you're like, "Oh, dude, I love Fight Club," and he's like, "I've never seen it."
Got this at a garage sale. Look cool.
But like, yeah, like, so it just sucks to see like an end of an era almost for me, where like it was kind of like almost like a ceremony I would do every Black Friday. I wouldn't go on Fridays. I would go Saturday and Sunday. I wait for the crowds to die down more recently. But yeah, I would drive out to the nearest Best Buy and just be like, all right, let's pick up a stack of Blu-rays, add them to my, and now I add it to our Voodoo account that we made with Sleepless with Steve.
I love that thing. I'm so glad we have that.
Yeah, honestly, like at my most recent trip to Austin, Texas, I used it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna download some movies on my laptop that we own. But yeah, it kind of sucks seeing that this was gonna happen. I mean, that this is happening. I kind of expected it to, as like more stuff became digitally available through streaming services, and tons of more streaming services were being made. What pains me though, it's like I can let Best Buy slip because it's like I get it. Like they're probably not selling as much as a refrigerator, a washing machine, a video game console, stuff like that. What pains me and the bone I have to pick, and we'll see where this eventually leads, is that Target is starting to do it with certain stores, where they're just taking now sections of the entertainment area and just turning it into an end cap for DVDs. Where it's like all you have there right now, and if for those of you watching the show, you can see it right now on the screen. All you have is just the recent releases. Like these are some of the photos that people have taken of like the end caps that they're doing to both the music section and the movies section, where it's just only new releases. You can just see that like on the right side with music, it's just Olivia Rodrigo's most recent album, and then the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. And on the left, it's Spider-Verse, No Hard Feelings, The Blackening, Flash, and that's about it. And that's the only movies they're selling at that local Target right there.
It's just what's immediately been released in the last month.
Yeah, within the last month, within the last year, possibly. Because the one that I used to work at, I went there just to go pick up like just some like deodorant, toothpaste. I was like, I'm gonna walk by the DVD section real quick, and I saw it, and yeah, the end cap had everything within the last year. Though, like the oldest release on that end cap was Halloween Ends, which is gonna be a year old. Like I think this Friday. That was it. Like that, everything else on the side, it was TV shows, and on the left side, it was like kids direct to DVD animated movies. That was it. What Target is starting to do now is like they're trying to become the next FYE or Hot Topic, where they have a bunch of fan stuff now throughout their entertainment section. So you can buy
Funko Pops and all that shit,
hats, collectible figurines, besides Funko Pops, all that stuff, posters, and it just sucks to see because it's just like. I mean, maybe that is selling more with people who are younger than me, but it's like every time I go to these fucking stores, I just see like tons of that stuff back there. Like no one's ever buying it. So I'm just like, I've seen movies be bought here. I don't see any of this stuff be bought. And like, I'm waiting for it eventually to happen. The books there, because like the book section is even small at the Target I went to as well. So yeah, like for me, it's like I can forgive Best Buy. It sucks, but I understand it. With Target, it's like I don't know what the hell your excuse is.
That's so funny that specifically the whole electronics store, you're willing to not as forgive it as much. Whereas Target, a more general store, is you're like, hell no.
Well, it's like, I look at it too. It's like, you guys aren't selling refrigerators, washing machines, computer. Well, you sell laptops, but you don't sell like whole desktops or everything. Like, I look at it, I'm just like, you should be the ones carrying this kind of stuff. Like, if Walmart's going to continue to carry it, why aren't you guys?
Yeah, what say you, Dom?
Well, first of all, it's a sign. It's a sign of the times. So it's really hard to complain. And frankly, like, I don't think that I really have much room to talk or complain about this because I don't really buy DVDs anymore or even video games anymore. It's very rare that I buy any piece of media, period. Because mostly I'm a YouTube guy.
I'm guilty of it too.
I'm a YouTube guy. Yeah, Steve, you're the most out of all of us, I think. And still, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. Because for me, the one place where I'm like, no, this needs to be a thing, and that's hardly even an argument, is disc replay. Which is like, that's a specialty specialty store that it legitimately serves that niche. Specifically serves that niche. So that as Best Buy gets rid of it, as Target gets rid of it, more people are going to go to disc replay. Maybe not completely compensating because the times move on, but for us yokels who are actually into that stuff, I do find myself going to disc replay. Every 2 to 3 months, I'll pick up like a whole bunch of games, and it's like, oh yeah, this that I never really had time to
great
rent.
Shop, great store.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really local to the Chicagoland area or if they're more common elsewhere, but I like them, and I got a Band of Brothers box set for like $20. All the episodes.
That's pretty good.
Special features. DVD, like the tin box set.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, hell yeah, this absolutely worth every penny for that. And all the DVDs were, I think this was like a year ago. I did like a marathon with my parents, and it's like, hell yeah, dude. It's a good series, and you can get all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah, Steve.
I'll add that Disc Replay has its most locations in Illinois. Second would be shit. It actually might have more in Indiana, quite frankly.
Is it a Midwestern store?
Illinois, Indiana. There's one store in Iowa. Catherine and I've been to it. It's in the mall. It's really nice down in Davenport.
That's
Michigan.
good.
Michigan's got quite a few. Ohio and Kentucky both have one, so largely Midwest.
Yeah. So let me just say that if you're like upset at that news, like just think about it for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like that's how the trend is going. It's the same reason why I'm sure people were mad when VHSs were stopped being sold at such a common rate. But if you're upset about that in any way, shape, or form, visit your local Disc Replay or even more independent seller, and it's like patronize that stuff because you'll find a lot of good deals. Like
exactly.
They have a ton of like original Xbox games. The original Xbox, the freaking big black box with the Duke controller. That's the stuff that's the one area that I'm like super like, oh hell yeah, no, this is the thing that you will not replace. It's a very near and dear to my heart. The first video game console that I was around when we bought it, because I was born, because my dad's into tech stuff, so I was born into a home where like there was already a PlayStation. So yeah, super into that.
I was gonna say too, the most recent time I went there, I'm gonna be having surgery eventually at some point. I'll be fine, don't worry, but I'm gonna be working from home or just like recovering for like a period of days. I bought all the Splinter Cell games just to play while I'm like laying in bed, like recovering, because now the most recent Xbox allows you to play like backwards compatibility with like almost everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Even for original, like you're talking about discs,
dude. Yeah, here. Like
what?
Let me go back.
The latest Xbox can play like my 2003.
It was like the biggest like
Halo.
Thing they did. It was like a complete 180 from like
complete 360.
Complete 180 from when the Xbox One came out, and like they were like, oh no, you have to buy everything digitally and all this other stuff and like whatnot. No, like Phil Spencer, the new like guy that runs Xbox, he's like totally consumer friendly for the most part. And one of the biggest initiatives he had is like pushing for backwards compatibility through all generations of Xbox. So like right here I have, oh god damn it, let me take off this stupid fucking FNAF filter.
For the record, Phil Spencer, probably a bastard in some ways, but I've always been partial to that guy.
Yeah. Like
more so than others.
Here's Chaos Theory. Here's
nice.
Here's Double
Pandora.
Agent. Pandora's back there. I couldn't grab it. It was like on the bottom
Pandora
of the
Tomorrow.
shelf. But then here's the original one from 2002.
The OG greatest hits. Greatest hits. Silver border.
I got the San Andreas GTA San Andreas with that greatest hits banner on it too.
So like I bought the whole collection. I'm like, you know what? I'm like, these games take about like 6 to 8 hours to beat each, and it's like if I'm gonna be laying in bed for like hours on hours a day, I want to see how far I can get through them all.
That's not a bad plan. During COVID, I remember it was like the summer of 2020, like late July. Might have been earlier, maybe early July, somewhere around there. I was going to my parents' house like every weekend, and I remember I went down one weekend. I didn't. I went down back where I used to live. I went all the way down to Bloomington Normal, and not too far from where Illinois State is, and I went to Disc Replay because there's a Disc Replay out there, and I bought for like $4 the Arena Football.
You told me about this.
Arena Football League. Yes, I did.
You have Trubisky on your team, I think, right?
No, I had Nagy.
Nagy. That's what it was.
I had Nagy because Nagy was the Bears coach was the quarterback during that era, and I made my own team. Stayed up till like 2 a.m. Like made my own team and stuff. And I'm like, I remember being in my parents' basement playing that game after I bought it at Disc Replay. Like, this is what it feels like to be a bum. You know what I mean? But we shall quit here, though. Definitely want to devote some words to Best Buy no longer having physical media. On that note, though, we'll quit here. We will continue next Wednesday. Killers of the Flower Moon is our movie, a 3.5-hour time investment that I'm not worried about.
I didn't even look at it. Oh, no.
I wish, for Dom's sake, I really wish it was coming to Apple TV the same day rather than later.
I do. I do wish that. You think you're going to be able to make it?
It's in theaters, right?
Yeah, it's only in theaters right now.
I'll go in on Sunday. I'll eat a very hearty meal beforehand. I'll put on a diaper.
I thought you knew it was going to be that long.
With movies this long, I go in the morning. I try to get it out of the way first thing in the morning. Like,
I think you're right. I think that's what I'm gonna have to do.
I did that with Avatar. No, I didn't do it with Avatar. I did it with Babylon, and it helped like really reschedule my whole day. Avatar, because I was going with friends and we had a whole dinner plan, and like it made it an event. But like with Babylon, it's like I want to see it, but it's like I'm gonna be alone and I want to get it out of the way, so that way like I have the rest of my day to do whatever I want, either think about the movie, talk about it with people, as well as just do anything else. Like I highly recommend just trying to get it out of the morning of like Saturday or Sunday if you can.
I think I'm gonna take a me day on Sunday and be like, because I'm working all day Saturday. So on
fuck.
Sunday, I'll literally like go to Tasty Biscuit, which is a breakfast place,
Hell yeah.
in the morning, and then go to the movie. I'll time it,
I love Tasty
and it's
Biscuit.
yeah, exactly. It's gonna be one of those things.
Self-care with Dom over here. At any rate, that's our movie next week. Probably gonna be a lot to talk about. I don't even know if maybe unless something breaks, we'll have news. I almost think that movie will carry the entire show next week. TBD on that. But Killers of the Flower Moon, that is our review next week on Sleepless with Steve. Very much looking forward to it. Dominic, glad you could join us for the back half of the show as well. Salute to you for signing on at the right time too. We will be back next week. Great review in store. Until then, for Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.